Hey there guys, this is GT521 here, and today, here is your review of the Canadian Grand Prix from the Montreal circuit, Gilles Villeneuve to be precise. I gotta say, what a race that was, and I will go into detail on that in a bit. So, let's start off with qualifying. A bit of an action-packed, very action-packed in fact in Q1. I think Pastor Maldonado pulled over yet again, and there was a crash also in Q1 towards the end. Marcus Ericsson lost control of his car and went into the barriers. Perez was also lucky not to get into the wall as he lost it at the same corner. The corner before Marcus Ericsson put his into the wall. That damaged Marcus's lap, but he was already out anyway. So the six people that got knocked out were Pastor Maldonado, Max Chilton, Jules Bianchi, Kamui Kobayashi, Marcus Ericsson, and Esteban Gutierrez, who did not set a time after a crash in FP3. So that pretty much dented his qualifying run, so he would start last. But then later on, Kamui Kobayashi would be given a 5-place grid penalty for a gearbox change. But he would start 21st because Gutierrez elected to start from the pit lane. So, moving on to Q2, and there was a load of surprises as well, specifically with Force India. We thought that Nico Hülkenberg was going to get into the top 10, but he just missed out, which was kind of shocking. So the six people that got knocked out in Q2 were Adrian Sutil, let's go from the beginning. Nico Hülkenberg, Kevin Magnussen again, Sergio Perez, Romain Grosjean, Daniel Kvyat, and Adrian Sutil. So we had our top 10. Now, it was obviously going to be a Mercedes, and we all thought it was going to be Lewis Hamilton. Well, he had to fight hard against his teammate. He was looking quick all weekend, and with the Williams were looking like they were going to be the best of the rest as well. But when we got there, we were wrong. Nico Rosberg just beat Lewis Hamilton. Lewis just couldn't get a brilliant lap in. He made a mistake, made a lock-up, and could only finish second. So Nico Rosberg took his third pole position of the season, with Sebastian Vettel in third. Unexpected, as he was struggling in the first two phases of qualifying. Bottas was fourth. And so we have our qualifying results. So let's run them down through the grid. It's Nico Rosberg on pole with Lewis Hamilton second, and Sebastian Vettel third, Valtteri Bottas fourth, Felipe Massa fifth, Daniel Ricciardo sixth, Fernando Alonso seventh, Jean-Eric Vergne eighth, Jenson Button is ninth, with Kimi Räikkönen 10th. Nico Hülkenberg is in 11th with Kevin Magnussen 12th, Sergio Perez 13th, Romain Grosjean 14th, Daniel Kvyat 15th, Adrian Sutil 16th, Pastor Maldonado 17th, Max Chilton 18th, Jules Bianchi 19th, Marcus Ericsson in 20th, Kamui Kobayashi 21st, and Esteban Gutierrez in 22nd, who elected to start from the pit lane. So, we get to the race, and it was a good start from Lewis Hamilton. It did look like that he was going to jump Nico Rosberg at the start, but both of them had understeer, Hamilton being the worst, him going wide. It did look like Nico pushed him off the track, but it actually turned out to be understeer from Lewis Hamilton. Nico also had the same problem as well. And because of that, Sebastian Vettel got up to second place. He'd also had a good start as well. Hamilton had to tuck into third. So at the moment, the top three was Nico Rosberg, Sebastian Vettel, and Lewis Hamilton. Then the safety car came out because of a crash with the two Marussias. Jules Bianchi had the worst damage as he broke his suspension in the barrier and lost his rear wing. We don't know which Marussia has got a penalty, but James believes it's Max Chilton. But so Max Chilton unfortunately had to retire. His front suspension was damaged, but that also means that for the first time in his Formula 1 career, he has not finished a Grand Prix. His run of finishing races had come to an end in Canada, which is very disappointing. Because that was such a good run of finishes from Max Chilton. Because of that, the safety car came out for at least 6 laps. Very long time indeed. What was weird, Pastor Maldonado even set the fastest lap during that safety car period, which seemed a bit weird. But eventually the safety car pulled in, the race was back on, and Nico Rosberg managed to build a gap ahead of Sebastian Vettel, who was trying to keep back Lewis Hamilton. It was only until lap 10 when the DRS was enabled and Lewis Hamilton was able to get past Sebastian Vettel and move himself up to second and try and challenge his teammate Nico Rosberg. There was a bit more squabbling down the field, but nothing really much happening. Well, Nico Hulkenberg was obviously challenging again. He was trying to keep hold of a train that he was holding up. But yeah, pretty good stuff. And Lewis was catching up to Nico Rosberg very quickly. But a weird controversy happened yet again with Nico Rosberg when he locked up and cut the last chicane. People were saying he did that deliberately, but I consider that just being a lock-up, because that was a massive lock-up than what it was in Monaco in qualifying. Nico was given a warning for that, so he did get punished. He was given a warning saying if he did that again, he would definitely get a penalty. So yeah, the first round of stops were completed before that controversy happened. Actually, it didn't actually. Or did it? I can't remember. But before that, Nico Rosberg's race nearly ended as he came out the pits and lost the back end and nearly got it in the wall. He's lucky to correct it. It didn't lose him too much time as he still came ahead of his teammate. But then controversy happened after Sebastian Vettel's pit stop, which saw him rejoin in 8th. Lewis Hamilton was complaining of power problems, which made him lose time to Nico Rosberg. And then, guess what, guys, as well, after Lewis Hamilton complained, Nico Rosberg complained of the same problem as well. He complained of the same problem of a loss of power, and it actually turned out that both Mercedes had suffered from a loss of ERS, which is essential because it pretty much provides the power and the electrics to the car, as the cars are now all hybrids. So yeah, there were some other retirements as well. Marcus Ericsson retired thanks to a turbo issue. Pastor Maldonado, once again, a power unit issue. He had some bodywork hanging off on the side, but it actually turned out to be a power unit issue. And then what was weird, after Kamui Kobayashi spun at turn 2, so many people were losing it down at turn 1, one of them being Johnny Verne. Then when Kamui Kobayashi lost it at turn 2, it looked like it just been a normal spin. But he actually had suspension failure. His suspension was like just tilted to one side, and he had to pull over, and that brought him into retirement as well. But that was not important because Mercedes at the moment were suffering from power issues, and the others were hoping to benefit from that. The Red Bulls, the Force Indias, the Williamses, and the Ferraris were trying to benefit from Mercedes' mistakes after being behind on pace from them. For starters, Sergio Perez was catching up. Both Force Indias going for a really weird strategy. They did this last year with Paul di Resta, trying to make it a one-stop strategy. Perez eventually had to come in for his one stop, leaving Massa in 3rd position. And Massa was putting his foot down. He was catching the leaders at like 2 seconds a lap, which is unbelievable. After that, Rosberg was the first to come in, and he had a bit of a delay on his tyre, and because of that, Massa got the jump on him after he made his first pit stop. This was Nico's second. It did look like for a minute Massa was going to try and do a one-stop strategy. Lewis came in, no problems with his stop, but because of that, Massa was able to get ahead of Lewis Hamilton, only just, but the important thing was, Lewis Hamilton managed to get the jump on Nico Rosberg. Thanks to Nico's delay in the pit stop, Lewis was able to get the jump on him to move up to second. But later in the lap, disaster. Lewis Hamilton had ran wide into the hairpin. We all thought it was just a mistake, and Nico Rosberg managed to pounce back and move into second. But then Nico forgot that there's DRS. Lewis had the DRS, went to the outside, but then he went straight on. It looked like he made contact with Nico Rosberg, as it looked like there was a piece of debris that fell off, but it actually turned out to be one of the lights, which was a bit of an optical illusion. The lights made it an optical illusion of debris. Lewis slowed. For one moment, it did look like he was just letting Nico Rosberg through as he gained an advantage. But as he went into turn 2, there was smoke coming off the back of his tyre. We all thought it was a puncture. But then when he went into turn number, I believe it was turn number 6, thanks James, 6, he ran wide again. Clearly, he had brake issues as he was cutting most of the track. Lewis was dropping back, and unfortunately because of that, Lewis had no option but to retire. It's his second retirement of the season, and the worst possible way to do it. But what's also disappointing is his run of winning the Canadian Grand Prix every 2 occasions came to an end, because he had won the Canadian Grand Prix like every 2 occasions he went there. He would win the race in 2007, then lose in 2008, then win in 2010 when they went there a 3rd time, lose in 2011, win in 2012, lose in 2013. We all thought he was going to win in 2014, but unfortunately his run of winning the Canadian Grand Prix every 2 occasions came to a dramatic end. Nico Rosberg had been told to be careful of his brakes, as the team were worrying he might suffer the same problem, as he was complaining of power issues as well. But what was important was Massa came in for a second stop, so clearly Williams could not make it into a one-stop strategy. He came in, but he had some fresh tyres, meaning that he could get the hammer down and catch up to the leaders. Massa could be on course for his first win since Brazil 2008, and this time with a different team. But that meant Perez moved up to second with the 2 Red Bulls close behind. Ricciardo managed to get the jump on Sebastian Vettel in the pit lane. Vettel wasn't happy about the way he was let out in the pit stop. And then the 3 of them, Perez, couldn't catch up to Rosberg. He had the straight line speed, but he just couldn't get him in the corners. He had a disadvantage. The Red Bulls could have pounced, but they were struggling to find a way past the Force India. And because of this, Felipe Massa, who was stuck behind a group of cars, managed to get past Bottas, and I believe it was, I think it might have been a Toro Rosso. I believe it was Jean-Eric Vergne. He had to, he pounced and made it up into 5th position, which meant he could harass the leader down. Then we had another retirement of Daniel Kvyat. He retired in the previous race. He retired thanks to a drivetrain issue. Massa was getting his foot down on those fresher tyres, and soon he was right up the back of Vettel, who was his first target. Despite this, Massa just couldn't find a way past the German. He was looking to the outside, and I was complaining that why wasn't he going to the inside? Vettel left plenty of space on the inside, but he chose to go for the outside. Clearly, because of that, he lost momentum coming out the final corner and wasn't able to get him in the second DRS straight. Because of this, Rosberg was able to pull a little bit of a cushion. And then eventually, with about 5 laps to go, Daniel Ricciardo, who was stuck behind Sergio Perez for most of the race, managed to take 2nd place finally off him. Despite going a bit wide, he got up to 2nd place. So this was already turning out to be an entertaining race indeed. Then we had another retirement. Esteban Gutierrez retired yet again, but this time thanks to an energy storage system problem. And then Massa tried to find a way past Vettel, but just couldn't find a way past. Ricciardo was now harrying Rosberg, and this could be an opportunity for Ricciardo to get his first ever win in Formula 1 if he could harry down Rosberg and pass him, because this would be history. He would become the 4th Australian, if he could do that, to win a Grand Prix and join the list of names who took their first win in Formula 1 around Canada. After that, But then eventually, with 3 laps to go even, Daniel Ricciardo got up to the back of Rosberg and passed him for the lead of the Grand Prix. Which meant that we could be seeing, if he could keep that position and not have any problem, we could see for the first time a Grand Prix won that was not won by a Mercedes this season. A different team would win, and it would be the 2013 champions who would make a return to the top step. After this, Sebastian Vettel went up to the back of Sergio Perez. Perez complained of brake issues, but they weren't as bad as Lewis Hamilton's. Eventually, with 2 laps to go before the last corner before the final lap, Vettel went to the inside of Sergio Perez and finally got it up into 3rd place, despite being on the marbles. Because of this, Massa wanted to take advantage of this. He was tucked up right up behind Sergio Perez and had the DRS. But then, when Massa was doing such a good job, disaster, one of the biggest crashes in 2014, Massa was going to look at the inside. With Perez having his faulty brakes, Perez turned slightly to the left. Massa hit the back of him. His front suspension broke. He ended up on the grass. Perez's rear suspension broke. Perez hit the barrier. And Massa, just avoiding Sebastian Vettel, how Vettel avoided that, I don't know, went careering into the barriers at 27G. It was a nasty crash to see, but thankfully both drivers were okay. They were taken to the hospital for precaution, but they were okay. They were released later on that day. Because of this, though, the safety car came out on the final lap, meaning we would see a similar situation what we saw in Monza 2009, where everyone would have to be slow and not overtake. Because of this, Daniel Ricciardo was effectively the winner. All he had to do was just drive around the last few corners to win. And guess what he did? For the first time this season, a Grand Prix is not won by a Mercedes, and it is the first ever win for Daniel Ricciardo. Congratulations to the Aussie. He becomes the 4th Australian to win a Grand Prix, and most importantly, joins the list of names who took their first win in Canada. He joins the list of Gilles Villeneuve, Thierry Boutsen, John Alesi, Lewis Hamilton, and Robert Kubica, and maybe more, I don't know. But unbelievable. Nico Rosberg, with his faulty air system, unbelievably crossed the line in 2nd. What a drive with a totally not 100% car. Vettel came across the line 3rd, with Jenson Button taking advantage of the crashes by crossing the line in 4th. Hulkenberg finished 5th, with Alonso 6th, Bottas 7th, Vergne 8th, Magnussen 9th, Raikkonen in 10th. Despite Perez and Massa retiring, crashing on the last lap, they were still classified in 11th and 12th, and Adrian Sutil, being the only one a lap down, crossed the line in 13th, and Esteban Gutierrez was still classified despite his energy storage problem. So the 8 retirements, I believe that's 8, yes, 8 retirements were Romain Grosjean, who retired thanks to a rear wing failure. In fact, this was actually before the concertina contact happened. Romain Grosjean, Daniel Kvyat, Lewis Hamilton, Kamui Kobayashi, Pastor Maldonado, Marcus Ericsson, Max Chilton, and Jules Bianchi. Let's have a look at the Drivers' Championship when I can get it up. It will take me a while. Let me get there. Let me have a look. Where do I go? Well, anyway. So the championship looks like this. Nico Rosberg still leads by 22 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton, with Daniel Ricciardo 3rd, Fernando Alonso 4th, Sebastian Vettel moves up to 5th, Nico Hulkenberg 6th, Jenson Button 7th, Valtteri Bottas 8th, Kevin Magnussen 9th, Sergio Perez 10th, Felipe Massa 11th, Kimi Raikkonen 12th, Romain Grosjean 13th, Jean-Eric Vergne 14th, Daniel Kvyat 15th, and Jules Bianchi in 16th. And the 6 drivers who are still yet to score are Adrian Sutil, Marcus Ericsson, Esteban Gutierrez, Max Chilton, Kamui Kobayashi, and Pastor Maldonado. In the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes still lead ahead of Red Bull, who have taken a chunk out of their lead. And unfortunately, I don't have the Constructors' standings with me, but they are still leading despite that. And what did I think of that race? Oh my God, what an epic race that was. I am not joking, that was better than Bahrain. Canada overtakes Bahrain and goes to the top of the best races of 2014. Unbelievable race that was, guys. That was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed that race, especially on the last few laps where things were hotting up. But what do I think Red Bull are back? Well, I think they are a bit. They got back to winning ways. But despite Ricciardo's win, which I thoroughly congratulate him for, and Vettel finishing third, meaning Red Bull took maximum points out of Canada today, I still think they are still a long way to go before they can get on terms with Mercedes, because Mercedes was still dominating, but today was just a whole lot of luck that played into the hands of Red Bull, Force India, Williams, and Ferrari. It was just anyone's to play after they complained of power issues. So Mercedes have got to make sure that doesn't happen in 2 weeks' time, because otherwise they can't afford too many points. Otherwise they will lose the championship, and that's not what they want. So this series will be back in 2 weeks' time when the F1 returns after 11 years. Formula 1 in 2 weeks' time returns to the Austrian Grand Prix, back round the A1 ring, now known as the Red Bull ring. It is now the A1 ring, and to be honest, I don't even know who's going to have the pace round there. Even though it is Red Bull's home track, we just don't know. Maybe Red Bull will take a leap out of Mercedes, but I still think they are a long way to go, and I still think Mercedes are still the team to beat. But yeah, overall, guys, a very good race. Absolutely enjoyed it. So that is it. That is my review of the race. Please comment and subscribe and tell me what you think about this race. But until next time, I have been GT5Man21, and I will talk to you guys later. Cheers.